There's this very specific, almost visceral moment of panic that I think every single person who's ever picked up a paintbrush recognizes immediately.
Oh, I know exactly the moment you're talking
It's
about.
that split second, you're feeling good, you're trying to paint a beautiful, smooth sunset, you've got your red, you've got your yellow, and you go to blend them together, and instead
Yeah.
of a sunset, you get mud.
Or a hard line. That might be even worse. You're going for a whisper, and you get a brick wall.
Right. It looks like a striped flag instead of a sky.
Yeah.
And you try to fix it, so you add more paint, and suddenly the whole thing is thick and tacky, and you just want to throw the canvas away.
We have all been there. It is the gradient gap. It's the difference between the image in your head and what your hands can actually do with the paint.
Well, today we are going to try and close that gap. We're doing a deep dive into some really technical stuff from Grupo Rame. And honestly, calling them art teachers, it almost feels like an understatement. Rodolfo Im and Laura Palacios are like paint technicians.
Which I love, because they treat art less like it's some kind of magic and more like it's engineering.
Exactly.
Because if it's magic, you can't teach it. But if it's engineering, if it's physics and chemistry, then anyone can learn the rules. And what's so fascinating about their breakdown is how they unpack the degrada, or the gradient, into its actual mechanics.
It's wild because they're basically saying there isn't just one way to do it. There are three totally distinct methods, and the one you choose completely changes the physics of your painting.
It changes the texture, how the light hits it, even how much time you have to work before the acrylics dry on you. It's not just making a fade, it's about choosing the right mechanical process for the job.
So today we are unpacking those three methods: the opaque mix, the transparent dilution, and the one that frankly kind of blew my mind, the subtractive white.
That last one is a real game changer, especially for acrylics.
It really is. But before we even get to the techniques, we have to talk about the surface. Because Rodolfo Im starts with a huge warning, like a big flashing red light.
The do not pass go rule.
Basically, yeah, he says, you cannot just grab a raw canvas abastador and start trying to blend colors on it. Why is that such a cardinal sin?
Well, think about what a raw canvas actually is. It's just fabric, right? It's woven cotton or linen.
So it's absorbent.
It's incredibly absorbent. It's basically a network of thousands of tiny little sponges. So if you take your nice wet acrylic paint and try to brush it onto that,
The canvas just drinks the water.
instantly,
Yeah.
it sucks the medium, the binder, right out of the paint. It dehydrates the pigment in seconds, and the paint just, it seizes up, it grabs the surface, and it will not move.
That's that awful dragging feeling, like you're painting with sticky glue.
Exactly. And you cannot blend glue. For a smooth gradient, the little particles of pigment need to slide past each other. They need a slip-in slide, not a Velcro strip.
So step one is you have to seal it.
You have to. You apply a base layer gesso, a white primer, a base coat of acrylic, and you have to let it dry completely. You're turning that sponge into a sealed, non-porous surface.
Okay, but here's the little pro tip from Grupo Rame that I had never heard before. They say even after you seal it and let it dry, you're still not ready yet.
Right. This is so critical for acrylics. Rodolfo Im suggests you actually reintroduce a little bit of moisture right before you start to paint the gradient.
Wait, so I let it dry, and then I get it wet again.
Just slightly. You take a clean brush with some water, if you're using acrylics, and you just lightly dampen the area you're about to work on. You're not flooding it. You just want a little sheen of moisture.
So that's the slip and slide.
That eliminates the friction. Now, when your fresh paint hits that moist surface, it glides. It gives you flow.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it buys you time.
And time is the absolute enemy with acrylics. They dry so fast.
They do. So that tiny water barrier keeps the paint binder active for a few extra minutes. It keeps the paint open.
All right, so our canvas is prepped, it's sealed, it's dry, and now it's just a little bit damp. We're ready. Let's talk about method one. This is the one I think 90% of us just do instinctively, the classic mix.
Grupo Rame calls this the opaque method. Or, if you want the technical term Laura Palacios uses, pintura baja, which translates to low paint.
Low paint sounds a little insulting, like it's low quality.
It's not about quality. It's about position and density. It just means it's a heavy, solid layer. So let's say you want to fade from red to white. In this method, you squeeze out a blob of red and you squeeze out a blob of white.
And you just sort of smash them together on the canvas.
You physically mix the two pigments right there. Put red here, white there, and in the middle you swirl them around until you get pink.
It works. I mean, we've all done it.
It works to create a transition, yes. But you have to understand the chemistry of what just happened. By adding white paint, which is usually titanium white, you've created an opaque barrier, Light can't get through it.
So it's flat.
It's flat. And color-wise, white doesn't just make a color lighter. It cools it down. It desaturates it. You don't get a light red, you get pink. You get this sort of chalky pastel version of your original color.
I see. So if I wanted a really fiery, glowing red, and I start mixing white into it, I'm actually killing the fire. I'm making it look like a milkshake.
Precisely. It loses all its vibrancy.
Yeah.
But there's an even bigger problem with method one, especially for people who are, painting something where they've done a lot of drawing beforehand.
Right, the destructive nature of it.
Yes. Rodolfo M. is very clear about this. Because that paint is opaque, it covers everything underneath. So if you spent hours sketching a perfect portrait or mapping out your shadows, and then you slather this red-white mix on top,
Your sketch is gone.
it's obliterated. You are flying completely blind now. You've lost your entire roadmap.
And to be honest, I feel like this method is the hardest one to control, even though it seems like it should be the simplest. I'm always chasing the blend. It's too pink, so I add more red. Oh, now it's too dark, so I add more white. And before you know it, I've got a 1/4 inch of paint caked on the canvas.
It becomes a sculpture project. The mud happens from overworking it. As the acrylic starts to get tacky, which is a matter of minutes, dragging your brush through it just creates these ugly, clumpy messes.
So method one, good for covering things up, good if you want that pastel look, but it's bad for transparency and a real danger to your underdrawing.
Correct. Use it when you need a solid wall of color.
Which brings us to method two. This feels like the more elegant solution, the dilution technique.
Now we're moving from opacity into transparency. And in this method, as Grupo Rame shows, we take away one of the tubes of paint. We're removing the white paint entirely.
So we're just using red.
Just red.
But a gradient has to go from dark to light. If I don't have white paint, where does the light come from?
The light comes from the canvas itself.
Ah.
Remember that white base coat we applied at the very beginning?
Yeah.
That is your light source. That's your light bulb.
Okay, so we're using the paint like a piece of stained glass.
That is the perfect analogy. In method one, you were painting with a brick wall. In method two, you're painting with colored glass.
So how does it work? How do I do it?
You start with your pure concentrated red at one end.
Mm-hmm.
As you move down the canvas, you don't add another color. You just dip your brush in water or a glazing medium, and you dilute the pigment.
So the layer of paint itself is getting physically thinner.
Physically thinner and optically more transparent. As that red pigment spreads out, more of the white background shines through the gaps. Your eye blends it together and registers light red. But chemically, that red is still pure. It hasn't been contaminated with chalky white.
So it glows?
It sings. It keeps all of its saturation. If you look at the old masters, this is how they achieved that incredible luminosity. It's all about glazing.
And I'm guessing this solves the lost sketch problem.
Completely. Because the layers are transparent, you can see your pencil lines right through them. You keep your structure, you keep your volume. Laura Palacios highlights that as a huge advantage.
Okay, but Rodolfo mentioned a specific tool for this. Because sometimes, even with water, you can still kind of see the brush strokes.
I get that hard edge, yeah. They recommend using a tool called a diffumino. In drawing, it's a paper stump. But for painting, this could be a really soft, dry brush or even a cosmetic sponge.
The clouding technique.
Exactly. While the paint is still wet, you take this dry, soft tool and you just gently tap or blur the edge. You're not really moving the paint, you're just breaking up that hard line.
And this is the part for impatient people like me, they brought out the hairdryer.
The secret weapon of every acrylic artist. Because this method uses such thin layers, you can do one pass, fade it out, and then just blast it with a hairdryer for 30 seconds. It's dry.
And then you can go right over it again.
Immediately. You can build up the intensity slowly, layer by layer. It is infinitely more controllable than the smash it all together method.
Okay, so that's method two. Transparent dilution. Great for vibrancy, great for layering. But now we get to method three. And I have to say, watching Rodolfo and Dame do this, it just feels wrong. It feels like you're breaking the rules of painting.
The subtractive method.
But why?
It's so counterintuitive. We're all taught that painting means put stuff on the canvas.
Yeah.
This method is all about take stuff off.
Okay, walk us through it.
So we're back to our red gradient. You start by covering the entire area. You want to fade with solid red paint. No fade at all, just a block of color.
Okay, so I'm staring at a red square. Now what?
Now, you remember the golden rule. You pre-moisten the canvas. So that red paint is sitting on a little cushion of moisture. It's not drying instantly. It's still open.
The clock is ticking, but slower this time.
Right. Now you take a trapo mojado, a damp cloth or a rag, You wrap it tightly around your index finger,
Yeah.
and you become the eraser.
You wipe the paint off?
You physically lift the pigment off the canvas, and in doing so, you reveal the white base underneath.
Mm-hmm.
If you wipe hard, you get back to pure white.
Yeah.
If you wipe gently, you leave a little red stain.
Yeah.
You can control the value.
That's amazing. It's like you're sculpting with light.
It's exactly like doing a charcoal drawing, where you cover the paper in black and then use an eraser to pull out the highlights. You're literally carving the light out of the color.
And what I love about that is the control. I feel clumsy with the brush sometimes, but with a rag on my finger, I feel like I could really shape that fade precisely.
And think about the stress level. In Method 1, if you mess up, you have to scrape it off or paint over it and make mud. In Method 3, if you wipe away too much, you just dab a little red back on.
Yeah.
If you didn't wipe enough, you just wipe again.
It's reversible.
It's incredibly forgiving. And, as Grupo Rain points out, you get the same color purity as Method 2. You're not adding white paint, so you don't get that chalky pink. You get pure, vibrant red fading into the white of the canvas.
It solves the drying time anxiety completely.
It turns the flaw of acrylics, the fact that they're water-based and can be reactivated for a short time, into a feature.
So we have the opaque mix, the transparent dilution, and the subtractive wipe. But it seems like regardless of which one you use, Laura and Rodolfo had some serious things to say about your tools, specifically your brush.
Oh, absolutely. The tool dictates the mark. The biggest mistake they see beginners make is a mismatch of scale.
You mean like trying to paint a whole sky with a tiny little detail brush?
It's a tragedy waiting to happen. If you use a small brush on a large surface, you have to apply a ton of pressure to spread the paint, and that pressure creates rasgos, these little ridges and valleys in the paint. You will never get a smooth fade if you're digging trenches with your brush.
So big surface, big brush.
Always. You need a brush that can hold enough paint to cover the area in just 1 or 2 smooth strokes.
And it's not just the size, it's the material, right? They said if you want a soft, smooth fade, don't use a stiff bristle brush.
The ones that feel like a broom.
Yeah, the scratchy ones.
Right. Those are for making texture, leave tracks. Grupo Rain is very specific. For smooth gradients, you want soft, synthetic hair. You want a brush that acts like a soft spatula, smoothing the paint, not like a rake scratching through it.
They also talked about this finishing move, a technique called painting.
Painting, or combing, this is the final polish. So let's say you've done your gradient. It looks pretty good, but you can see a few tiny brush marks.
Like 95% of the way there.
Right. You take a clean, dry, very soft brush, and while the paint is still wet, you very lightly sweep it back and forth over the transition, sort of perpendicular to the fade. You're gently combing the pigments together.
It's like the blur tool in Photoshop.
It is. It's the real-world version of that, but you have to do it while it's wet.
Yeah.
It's often the difference between a good painting and a really professional-looking one. It just harmonizes everything.
Okay, so we've been talking all acrylics. I can just hear our listeners who use oils shouting, but what about me? Does any of this apply to them?
All of it. That's the great thing about physics. The principles are identical.
But the chemistry is different.
The solvent is different, that's all. With acrylics, your solvent is water. With oils, it's turpentine, or an oil medium. So for Method 2, the dilution, you're adding medium, not water. For Method 3, the wipe, you'd use a rag with a little bit of turpentine.
But the core logic is the same.
100%. In fact, oil painters have it way easier. They don't have to fight the clock. An oil gradient stays wet for hours, sometimes days. You can sit there and pine that gradient until it's absolutely seamless.
So really, these tricks from Grupo Rain, especially the damp canvas and that subtractive wipe, they're survival skills for acrylic painters.
They're specific adaptations to make a fast-drying medium behave more like a slow-drying one.
It's funny, when you break it down like this, I realize I've spent years trying to force the paint to do things it just doesn't want to do, trying to mix an opaque paint and expecting it to look transparent.
And that's the trap of the classic mix. We think complexity comes from what's on the palette, from adding more and more colors. But so often, the real beauty comes from the layers. It comes with letting light travel through the paint.
It changes your mindset from just covering the canvas to working with the canvas.
You're collaborating with the light itself. And I think that's what Rodolfo M. and Laura Palacios really get at. You have to respect what the materials can do.
So to recap the toolkit we've built today, we've got 3 different arrows in our quiver now.
Method 1. The opaque mix. Good for coverage, but bad for depth. Use it when you need to block something out or if you actually want that pastel look.
Method 2. The transparent dilution. Great for vibrancy, for keeping your sketch visible. That's your stained glass effect.
And Method 3. The subtractive wipe. That's the secret weapon. It's for maximum control and for sculpting the light right out of the color.
And of course, the golden rule. Seal your canvas and then give it a little drink of water before you start.
A thirsty canvas will always ruin your painting.
You know, I can't get that subtractive method out of my head. There's something almost philosophical about it.
I mean,
Well, in life, in art, in everything, we're so obsessed with addition. We think more is the answer, more data, more features, more paint on the canvas. We're always trying to construct the perfect thing from scratch.
right, we build up, we add layers of complexity, hoping to find the solution in there somewhere.
Exactly. But the subtractive method suggests that maybe the perfect thing is already there. The light is already on the canvas. It's just buried under the mess. Your job isn't to create the light. It's just to clear away what's obscuring it.
That's a profound shift. It reminds me of Michelangelo, who said he didn't create the statue of David. He just chipped away the marble that was trapping the angel inside.
Yes, the masterpiece is already there. You just have to reveal it. So my final thought for you listening is this. Whatever project you're stuck on right now, a painting, a report, anything, are you trying to fix it by adding more noise to the pile? Or maybe, should you grab a rag and start wiping things away to reveal the light that's trying to get out?
Sometimes the best addition is a subtraction.
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Keep painting.
We'll see you next time.